I'm gonna try and record this before all the light goes away. I just came home from work, so who knows what the energy level is going to be. Today's video is, I want to compare books to animals. Specifically, the animals that I picked are ones that are endangered or on the list of, like, you know, concern for endangerment, or their habitat is having problems. So really the goal of this video is to kind of promote helping animals, and the WWF, I will have them linked down below. They are basically the only organization that I tend to donate to, or I ever really did donate to, because animals are something that are near and dear to my heart. So before we get into that though, I will pick out of here. Okay, we will learn about Matressa. The Caribbean island of Hispaniola is divided into two nations, Haiti and the Dominican Republic. Although voodoo has historically been associated with Haiti, related traditions exist in the Dominican Republic too. The Dominican tradition is usually spelled Vodo or referred to as the 21 divisions. Matressa is the term used to describe Vodo female spirits. It is a Spanish adaptation of the French word maîtresse, or in English, mistress. Oh, that makes sense. Well, there we go. There's a little bit of something new. Okay, so comparisons to animals. Let's go. The first book is going to be The Mask of Mirrors. This is the first book in the Rook and Rose trilogy. Currently, there are only 2 books out, but the third book is predicted to be out sometime in 2023, and I'm super excited. The Mask of Mirrors is basically, it's an epic fantasy. It does have a very extensive and intricate world that can be a little difficult to get into, but you follow a character called Renata. Essentially, she comes from a pretty tough background, and she had to be kind of a con artist and a thief, and she escaped from it with her sister. And together they decided that they're going to con the rich and royal families of the city of Nadezra, who they feel Nadezra has wronged them because of their poor upbringing. So she tries to infiltrate a family and poses as a long-distance cousin, but she realizes that this family is actually struggling with money quite a bit. So all while trying to put up this farce of being a cousin to get money, she's also now trying to help them get their money. And on top of that, there is also a vigilante type of character in here that is very alluring to Renata, because ever since she was a kid, it was kind of this symbol of freedom and rebellion and all that. So it's a very pretty book. It is very Venetian, very elegant, and because of that, I would compare it to the Amur leopard, or Amur leopard. I'm not entirely sure how to say it, but the Amur leopard is a leopard that lives in the temperate forests of Russia, like the far east of Russia, and they tend to be very solitary animals. They also will hide their prey or unfinished kills, and I mean, they're gorgeous looking. They really, cats in general, I feel like this whole book you could compare to cats. But the Amur leopards are critically endangered. I think when I checked on the website, there are probably only about 60 that have been noted to be living in the wild. That is crazy to me. And the primary reason for their endangerment is poaching. The next book is a favorite from last year that I really don't talk about very much anymore. I mean, maybe I do, and people are sick of hearing it from me, but Vicious by V.E. Schwab. This book it's set in our world, but think of it kind of like X-Men-ish, where there are people who have powers, but they are hidden from society. They tend to hide themselves. And the way that they gain these powers is from near-death experiences. And in this book, you kind of know what the ending is going to be. So it's this rivalry between 2 previously best friends, Victor and Eli. And the whole story is kind of the build-up toward that ending, that big confrontation that you know is going to happen. You're mostly following Victor and kind of the shit that he has been dealing with in between, and this band of people that he's kind of collecting to help him defeat Eli, because Victor has the power of manipulating pain and Eli is unkillable. So it's honestly, I love this story. It has a fragmented timeline and it jumps around. Like, it can be from 5 minutes before the encounter to 10 years ago to It's wild, but the chapters are super short. It's very fast paced, and the humor in it is great. Also the team building, I think, is beautiful. I love it. So with Vicious, I compared it to the Sunda tiger. The Sunda tiger can be found in the island of Sumatra, although they used to be found in more places than that previously, but because of their endangerment, it has become a much smaller area in which they live. So the Sunda tigers are the smallest species of tigers, which I did not know, and I think is kind of cool. And something that is kind of unusual about the Sunda tigers is that something that's very common in tigers is that they're solitary, but Sunda tigers actually tend to not be very solitary. They'll have like little families, and they will even share food among different families of tigers, which this actually kind of made me think of Victor, where he seems like a very solitary character, kind of like unemotional and cold, but at the same time, like, he clearly will be there for you. So, I don't know. It reminded me of Victor. And again, these tigers are critically endangered, and it's primarily, again, due to poaching. The next book, The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, is the first book in another trilogy. The trilogy is called the Bloodsworn Saga, and there are currently 2 books that are out. The third one doesn't have a date, to my knowledge, yet. In this saga, or whatever you want to call it, you follow multiple characters, and it's based in a very Viking-esque world. Of course, it is an epic fantasy, so there are fantastical elements to it. Particularly people who draw power, their bloodline is like some kind of descendants from gods in a way. So in this world, the gods are dead, they were vanquished. And there are many like war bands that capture these people who have that blood of the gods in them, and they make them into slaves. But then there are also war bands that kind of hide their identity. It's a whole thing. But the 3 primary perspectives that you follow in this book is Orca, who is a mother, and Varg, who was a previous slave, and Elvar, I think is her name. She is a soldier or a warrior, that's better. She's a warrior in one of those war bands that gets hired out to, go get more slaves or whatever. So that's basically what happens here. I don't really want to say much more because there is really a lot to these books, but the animal that I will compare it to, and the reason why, is I was going to choose a bear. But then I realized that a lot of the elements in this story remind me more of an elephant. Now, the particular elephant, is the African forest elephant is what I picked. So a lot of us know about the African, like, savanna elephant or something, and the African forest elephants are smaller than those, and they are distant cousins to them, and also there's very little known about them. So there wasn't really much that I could find about them, but typically elephants, they are herd animals, and these ones from pictures seem to be as well, and they have a matriarchal type of power dynamic. And in this book, there are a lot of strong women. And really, it's one of my big selling points with this book is that if you want to read from the perspective of very strong women who are written well, it's great. And so another thing, too, is that elephants tend to be very big on family, and this book has a lot of that. Found family, blood family. It's really big, and honestly, I just felt like, this book reminds me a lot of an elephant type of animal. I didn't write it down, but I'm pretty sure that the African forest elephant, they are critically endangered. I think they were at like the top of the list. And I think that it's primarily due to poaching again, and also environment, like habitat destruction, something like that. The next book is Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reed. This is a gothic horror, so it's not a fantasy like all the other books. And it's based off of the Juniper Tree story written by the Grimm brothers, I think. And yeah, I mean, if you've read that, then you'll know that this book deals a lot with child abuse and cannibalism and just general themes that will disturb you. So be warned. Huge trigger warnings here. So in this book, we have our main character, Marlinkin, she is the youngest sister of 3, and they are daughters of a wizard. He's like the last wizard or something like that. Like he killed the last witch. I don't know. But anyways, the point is that the city that they live in, Oblia, is transitioning into an industrial era. And so what they do is kind of like almost tourist traps. Like they do little magic stuff that people come to see. But half the time people are more interested in like meeting a witch than actually using, like, you know, it's like parlor tricks at this point rather than an actual used practice for everyday success or whatever. Marlinkin is suffering a lot from feelings of, you know, she doesn't feel like she really deserves anything. She's pretty down on herself, and so is her family. It's pretty dark, the situation she's in. But she meets a ballet dancer in the local ballet theater, and they fall in love, and it kind of goes from there, where both of them are struggling from getting away from their abusers and discovering some truths about themselves. Yeah. So the animal that I compared this book to is the black-footed ferret, which is a animal that is native to the plains of the United States. And they look adorable, right? It just looks so cute. But they are actually vicious predators. They eat a lot, apparently. I think I read something where it said that they primarily will eat prairie dogs, and they can eat up to, if not more than, 100 prairie dogs a year, which is not counting like the rabbits and the squirrels and the random little mice that they'll eat from time to time. So they eat a lot, and they're small, but you know, that's what they do. They can also be very vocal and solitary as well, which is kind of why I decided to pick them for this, where Marlinkin is kind of alone in her plight. And I'll just say this, she seems like she's adorable and innocent, and yes, she is, like, she suffers, she is a victim, and she is kind of, like, I mean, her entire family calls her stupid and plain-faced and all that, and for a long time she believes it, but I'll say this. She ends up being a lot more dangerous than you think. And even like the whole world here, it seems like the whole setting, it'll kind of have a very surface level, we'll say. It looks pretty on the outside, and on the inside, it's not so kind. So I thought the animal was fitting. And the black-footed ferret is endangered, but it's not like a critical endangerment, but it is endangered, and it's mostly due to habitat loss and also to non-native diseases. All right, and the final book is The Ninth Reign. Of course, I had to pick this one. The Ninth Reign is kind of a mix between fantasy and sci-fi, because in this world, you don't really get a lot of explanation. You're kind of just thrown in there, and you just go along with it. But in this world, there are humans, and there are also a race of people called Eborans. And Eborans are, imagine vampire elves, I guess. But they draw their power from a very large tree, which they consider their god. And it has this type of nectar that helps them subsist. And this tree also will produce these fruit that when there is the enemies that appear, which are kind of alien-like, and they come out of nowhere, no one really knows where they come from, but when they appear, they call it a rain because the fruit fall from the tree, and these war beasts are birthed from the tree. But long story short, in this book, that tree is dead, and the Eborans are also dying. And you follow a character called Tourmaline and Vintage. Tourmaline is an Eboran who he just is like, fuck it, my people are dying, so I might as well live my life. And he meets Vintage. Vintage is a human who is also like an archaeologist, historian type of woman, who she is like, I want answers. Who are these enemies? Why are Eborans dying? And what are these creatures that are walking around our world? And it goes from there. You kind of adventure with them, and you kind of discover the history of this land, and it rolls into a bunch of stuff. And this book I compared to a narwhal, because narwhals, let's face it, they're sick looking. It's like a whale with a unicorn horn on it. It looks awesome, and they're also extremely mysterious. So narwhals, they live in Arctic waters, and the majority of them, I guess, will winter for 5 months, sometimes longer, under the ice. And they don't breathe underwater. They're still technically like whales, so they do have to surface for air. but they will breathe through the ice through cracks that they find in the ice. It's crazy. Also, their like unicorn horn, it's a tusk, and it can have, hold on, fucking listen to this. Their tusk has incredible sensory ability with up to 10 million nerve endings on it. That's otherworldly, which is why I picked it for this book, because this book is also kind of otherworldly and wild and amazing and just so crazy. So narwhals, though, they thankfully are on the list of least concerned for endangerment, but the gas and oil industry and development is still putting them at risk because of pollution, but also because of ocean noise and disturbance, because again, these are very sensitive creatures. So, you know, it's not really great for them. And also the ships and everything can be very endangering to ocean mammals. So yeah, those are all the comparisons that I made with these books. I hope that you liked it. I know that I had fun kind of thinking of what kind of animals these books remind me of. I really do hope that you consider possibly donating to the WWF. They do a lot of good stuff for animals that are in need of it, and they need the kind of support to go back into the wild, especially if they are rescued or anything like that. So I figured this was a good cause, and I hope you enjoyed it. I love animals, and I just kind of want to share that. I love books and animals, so I'm sharing both. And I hope it was enjoyable. So, yeah, I'll see you next time. Bye.